This story is called Larry's 1956 Science Museum Adventure. So, Grandpa Larry's 1956 Science Museum Adventure. Now, my friend Denny, also known as Milroy, he and I were rummaging through the trash again at that dump over next to Calvary Cemetery. You know, the one off Front Avenue and Dale Street in Frogtown? We were always on the lookout for something wonderful, unusual, zany, you might say. There were the assorted cans and bottles, old pieces of metal and wood, broken couches and tables, chairs and lamps, junk and whatnot, and even now and then an old TV that was just begging to have someone throw rocks or bottles at it. Of course, from a distance. I mean, we weren't stupid and watch it explode. In short, all kinds of what you might call treasures for 10-year-olds like us two roving buccaneers. And we had to be careful where we were stepping so as we didn't fall into a mess of stuff or cave into the bottom of the whole hole of trash. Suddenly, a miracle appeared. I found it poking out of some cans and logs, a single horn kind of thing, and I gingerly stepped forward, testing my weight at each step to where the rest of it was hiding under the log. Holy cow! It was a skull, a skull of some kind, not human, but some animal. It must have been. Oh, I tugged on it and leaned back, pulling all of it out slowly as it made its appearance to me, all white bone with two huge horns with coverings over them that were smooth and faded yellow and kind of grayish like. I called out, "Hey, Milroy, come and see this. Looky here at this skull. What do you think it is?" "Huh?" Well, he didn't know any better than I did. We had no idea of animal anatomy and what it might be. Well, it wasn't like it was an elephant. That's for sure. We knew that. Well, maybe it's a fossil, like those bones they're finding deep in the ground over there by Maryland Avenue, where they're building the freeway. We've seen them at the museum where the mummy is and all those stuffed animals over there by the Capitol. I said, we got the unknown fossil skull out to my bike and put it in the basket with our guns that we brought along in case we got a hankering to play cops and robbers or some other cowboy shoot 'em up thing. 10-year-old stuff. Then we both hightailed it out of there so no one would yell at us and stop us from taking something from the trash or claiming it was their own as if we were stealing it. I mean, we weren't taking any chances with this incredible treasure that we'd found. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon in July in our neighborhood of Frogtown as we pedaled our way down the long hill of Como Avenue to Western Avenue, where other times we stood on the bridge there as steam engines puffed their black smoke up into our faces, rattling the whole bridge as we laughed ourselves silly, then biking again, picking up some speed way down Como Avenue, wind in our hair, timing our speed just right as when flying through the green light at Marion to Rice Street and up the hill past the house with chickens clucking in the backyard to Park Avenue. I mean, real chickens. There were real chickens at the yard up along towards Park Avenue. Well, we hung a right turn and down a couple of blocks, then a hard left, and just ahead, up a little hill, there it was, the Science Museum. We puffed our way up and came to a stop right at the steps of the mammoth old building. Carefully dismounting our trusty steeds, locking the kickstand down, I lifted the skull from the basket and we walked up the steps of the old blackened red sandstone building. It had a spooky kind of look, What with that dirty surface and worn out steps from hundreds of people stepping on them over years, Melroy and I agreed what we were going to say about where we found the fossil thing. As we walked into the entry room, it was suddenly very, very dark. Lights only in the displays of animals and fish and insects and stuff. We knew the mummy was close by, but we couldn't see it from where we stood. And before we could venture farther in, we heard a friendly, deep voice. "Well, what do you have here, boys?" We both blurted out at the same time. "We found the skull sticking out of the ground over by the cemetery, and we wondered if it might be a fossil of an animal or, like a dinosaur." The man looked at it. Then he looked at us and said, "It surely was a big skull and a terrific find on our part. You must be really excited, huh?" he said. "A lot of fossil findings these days and people bringing in all kinds of bones. We have a collection here, you know. Have you seen it?" Well, we surely had seen that. "I'll tell you what I'll do," he said. "I'll keep this skull and give it to our paleontology department to study. And you come back next week and I'll give you an answer as to what it is, okay?" "Sure, thanks," we said, and puffing out our chests, feeling proud and all, happily walked out of the building, forgetting completely to stop by the mummy and say hello. With the skull in safe hands and a promise of a revelation as to its possible identification as an ancient artifact, we decided that seeing as we were here at the museum, we might as well find something else to do. Denny cried out, "Cowboys, Larry! This is the best place with the woods, the building, and the hills. We can have a blast here. Lots of places to hide." "Good idea, Denny. You got a nickel? Let's flip a coin to see who is the good guy and who is the bad guy. But no calling 'I got you' unless we're in the open with a clear shot, okay?" We agreed and separated, excitement filling the air, as this was a favorite game that we played all the time at home or wherever we'd gone off to. We knew all the cowboy TV shows, all the names of the good guys who saved people and killed or locked up the bad guys. I won the toss and called out my favorite good guy, Hopalong Cassidy, of course. You see, when I was 8, my older sister Mary Lou got me a full Hopalong Cassidy outfit. Pants, shirt, scarf, tie with a cattle, head holder, boots, hat and holster with the 2 guns. I tell you, I knew my cowboy heroes. I even wore that outfit to church a couple of times, when my mom couldn't see what I was wearing when I skedaddled out of the door. I ran around the back of the museum, Denny heading toward the front. We were stealthy as snakes in the grass, slowly and silently working our way around the building, hiding behind a big tree here and there. As I moved to the far side of the building, I noticed the woods a short distance away and thought, seeing as I can't hear Denny and I don't see him, I wonder if he's in there, waiting for me to show myself and get me. Unsure of my position now, I cautiously hugged the building like a fly on the wall, and I inched my way forward, reaching the front stairs of the museum and flattening myself on the ground, not knowing where the heck that varmint was. Suddenly I heard him. "All right, Cassidy, I got you totally covered now. Don't move a muscle or you're dead meat. Do as I say, nice and slow like. Get up. Don't turn around. Throw your gun back behind you." I heard a crackling of sticks breaking and leaves rustling, and I knew He was headed toward me from the woods. Then a loud cry out, "Ow!" and the sound of him falling. I turned around, and Denny was sprawled out on the ground, his gun maybe 10 feet away from him, having tripped on a low stub of a broken tree. This was my chance to get away. Make a break for it, and I did. I grabbed my gun and raced toward the top of the hill near the bridge that goes over University Avenue to the Capitol. If only I could make it there, I thought. I'd get away from him. Just as I got to the edge of the hill, I heard it loud and clear. Bang, bang, you're dead, Hopalong. And I slowly, painstakingly, with much drama, collapsed to the ground, dropping my gun, and started rolling down the series of 3 small hills that ended at the sidewalk below. Rolling down, my body gathered momentum as I felt myself pass the top of the second hill and figured I would put the brakes on at the bottom of this hill. And then I was suddenly airborne, still turning over but in the air just for a second, and then fell flat on my stomach on the sidewalk below. It was so sudden I was startled, shocked, but in one piece. Got the wind knocked out of me, that was for sure. No, Larry, you're all right. No broken bones. I felt under my shirt. Not even any scratches or blood. But where did that wall come from? I thought there were 3 hills, but there were only 2. That was a 10-foot wall I rolled over. And you know what? That wall is still there, if you don't believe me. Though the Science Museum building had been torn down, there at the top of the hill stands Milroy, the bad guy, gun in hand. "What are you doing down there? I told you not to move," he says, laughing. "You okay, Hopalong Cassidy?" He picked up my gun and met me at the sidewalk to the museum. "Handing it to me there," he says. "I don't have to carry you home on my bike now, do I?" Then me and my best friend Denny headed for home, because we gotta get to confession. After all, it's Saturday afternoon, and confessions start at 4 o'clock. Biking home slowly now with a sore body, we went down Como Avenue, past the house with chickens in the yard, barely got through the light at Rice Street, and pedaled toward the Sheffer School playground, just a block away. There I saw a big empty field for running games, and tucked at the far end were a sandbox, a metal slide, and a set of 4 swings. 2 years later, into the future, I would meet a pretty girl with blonde hair and a friendly smile there on the swings. Just the 2 of us on a summer's afternoon in August. But this is now. That was a delight ahead in my life. Not in my mind now, not of any interest, really, especially considering the possible treasure I had found in that old dump Milroy and I always went to. Denny and I got home from the Sheffer School playground in about 5 minutes, as it was about 3 blocks from there. I parked my bike, went into the house, told my mom me and Denny were going to confession. Heading out the door, I saw across the street where he was waiting for me at his house, sitting on his black bike, smiling up a storm, watching me. I took both ways to cross Thomas Avenue, remembering it was just a few years back, as on my bike I got hit by a car for not looking both ways right here on this block of ours, and I wet my pants. All clear now. I coast across the street, and we mosey off down to our St. Vincent's Church on the corner of Virginia and Blair Streets. Walking slowly and silently into the old church, we get there, and there is no one sitting in the church, waiting to go into the confessional. Going up to a side pew, we genuflect as we've been taught to do, kneel down and think about what to say when we get inside. If the priest is still there. Well, Milroy jumped up and walks back to the red curtain on the other side of the confessional and goes in. I can't hear anything, which I don't really want to, so I go into the other side red curtain to kneel down and wait for the priest to open the small sliding door so I can confess my sins. I am so glad that it's dark inside and the priest can not see me. He won't know me. He won't know who I am and saying these awful things to him that I did. Then the slide door is open and I start, Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. My last confession was 1 week ago. I disobeyed my parents 10 times. I said bad words 8 times. I hit my best friend in the face with an apple I threw at him. I was naughty and went to Straysky's garage without permission. Well, then he said some words to me about trying harder to be a good boy and obey my parents. I could just make out through the dark, filmy fabric over the speaking opening that it was the young priest, and I was so glad it was him, the nice, friendly Father Mikey, and not the old, scary, mean one, Father Morgan. Then he gave me a penance to say, some prayers like 3 Our Fathers and 3 Hail Marys, and say an act of contrition, which I did right there, relieved that it wasn't a rosary or 25 prayers because I was so bad. Then as I got up to leave the confessional, Father Mikey said to me, Hey, Larry, when we're done here, would you and Dennis help me put some chairs away? I was stunned. Oh my gosh, completely shocked. Father Mikey knew who I was, who told him these terrible things I did. And then he came out of the priest's box, put his arms around the both of us, Danny and me, and said, Come on, let's get this job done. And we did. We helped the priest who knew who we were and what we said to him and what we did. And it didn't matter. We weren't really bad boys after all. And that's the end of my story about the Science Museum adventure. It was long, but I hope you liked it.